Hey everybody, Adam Savage in my cave. I got a call from a friend of mine this morning, my friend Fitz. And Fitz called me and said, well, we were chatting about some other stuff. And then he said, hey, last thing, do you have a favorite heat gun? What's your favorite heat gun? Which heat gun should I get? Now, Fitz and I have had this conversation before. I mentioned that he was my consigliere when I bought my pressure washer. He had bought the same model, and I'd done a lot of research into the sort of best bang for the buck. Before we get started, I have a show and tell that has nothing to do with heat guns whatsoever. I was just at, where was I? Chicago, FanX Chicago. I just got back last night, and it was a wonderful, spectacular weekend. Had dinner with some friends, saw a ton of amazing people, signed a lot of autographs, heard a lot of stories. It was spectacular. And one fan gave me this amazing thing, this skull fragment. Now, this is from @callsign_Ragnar. We'll include a link in the description to his TikTok. This was a gift to me. And he said, it's actually a visual pun, and I really appreciate it. It's a ghost buster. But I said to Fitz, yes. So here's the thing. I believe I've done a heat gun video. We'll leave it in the description, in case I feel any different about stuff now than I did a few years ago when I recorded it. And I might have recorded several individual heat gun videos. I can't even remember. So I'm going to go over all my heat guns right now. For the tried and true basic, you can't beat a plug-in heater with an adjustable heat setting. DeWalt makes one of these. Milwaukee makes one of these. I have one of each. I just happen to have the DeWalt here now. Milwaukee's at my house. I don't notice much of a difference between those two. We will include links to both in the description. I do appreciate that the DeWalt has a stand like that, but that's because it's right in front of me. These get really good and hot. You can really, truly melt plastic with these and set stuff on fire. They can be very difficult for heat shaping styrene because they're so hot. Even on their lowest setting, they're quite acute in their heat application. But if you were only going to have one, it would probably be this one. I would recommend this one. Ben Eady even showed me a few years ago that when you're doing contact cement application, and let's say you do the proper application of 2 layers or 3 layers of contact cement, letting each dry at the right amount of time, and then you bring them together and you've done it wrong, and hell or high water won't rent those 2 pieces asunder. Heat gun, application of a heat gun can loosen up that contact cement. Especially if you're working with leather, it's a great way to undo and reset. So you can pick these up used. You can pick these up at the Goodwill. Honestly, it'd be fine if you didn't know if this was useful to you to go buy a super cheapo version of it. $15 at a garage sale kind of thing. Moving along, you've seen this. Yeah, for a while, I went with a different Conair blow dryer. But this is the OG Yellow Bird Conair Pro. I've talked about these before on the channel. I just love this. I love this hair dryer. It is classic. But more than that, I find its controls intuitive. I spend maybe half an hour of any given day being mildly outraged at my user experience of products. I turn a dial one way when I think when it needs to go the other way, but that's not clear. Or I turn a dial and get no feedback from the dial or from the machine. Or, this one, I turn it on, and if you want full heat, all switches are down. You want anything less, there's another configuration, but you want full heat, all switches are down. And Look, I love these so much. Michael Stevens and I had a hovercraft. We had a hovercraft gag in our Brain Candy tour, where we had a kid come up on stage and build a hovercraft with these for real every single night on stage. And then Michael Stevens and I played air hockey with that kid. These are spectacular. I love them. They're too expensive. I'm going to tell you that. We'll include a link. They're on Amazon, but they're more than they should be. They're like $60. It's not. Look, my previous one I had for 30 plus years, so maybe they are totally worth it. That just strikes me as a little bit too high for that. But and actually, it's the reason. It's the reason a few years ago when my last one of these, when my main squeeze Conair Yellowbird gave up the ghost, I went and got this Infinity Pro by Conair. I was being brand loyal. But this thing has high is up top, hot is up top, but it's much easier to accidentally click the switches down. There's just not the same kind of simple feedback to these switches as there are to these. Want the hottest? All switches down. And this did fine. It did fine. It's fine. I will keep it as a backup. I think it's totally reasonable to have an emotional connection to a tool that's not necessarily attached to its performance. But I do believe that the Conair Yellowbird has delivered and over-delivered for me over the years. Okay, last two. I've talked about this before, but again, not in sort of maybe heat gun compendium. This is a DeWalt cordless heat gun. Hold on. I will get a battery. Now, a heat gun that's battery powered, you say? That sounds like it can't be good, because heating elements draw a tremendous amount of current, and batteries are famous for, under high load, not necessarily having a lot of the current. I put a small battery in here, but here's the thing about this DeWalt. It has 2 speeds, low and high, and I don't think it's got any other adjustment besides that, except that you can actually lock it on. And I bought this thinking to myself, I will admit, about once a year, I go check out what new things are powerable with DeWalt batteries. Most of them are DeWalt equipment, but not all. And this was one where I bought it and I'm like, this is just going to be crappy. I mean, I'm going to get it because I'm curious. I'm heat gun curious. But its crappiness turns out to be its defining feature. This is a gun that gets hot, but very locally and not super hot. So this is like a great way to apply a concentration of heat, but you can't apply too much. Like this is just not going to put out the high amount that a normal heat gun like this puts out, but that's fine. That's totally great. So I love the limitation of the battery on this heat gun. It allows me to tune it to the job. One last one. This one, I came back from Tom Sachs's shop. I was in New York in early 2023 for 3 weeks working on a project. And during that time, I embedded in Tom Sachs's studio in New York, which was spectacular. Really, really invigorating, illuminating, inspiring. Yeah, it was great. And look, Tom and I, a good portion of our friendship is based on trading tools. A good portion of many of my friendships is about trading tools and back and forth and trading ideas about tools and, oh, you got to go get this one. But I learned about this in Tom Sachs's shop, which this is again a grossly underpowered thing that is called a heat gun, and yet its lack of power is kind of its strength. I keep this at my workbench because when I want to spot dry something, this doesn't put out enough air or heat. Sometimes when I pull this out and all switches to low, it like blows stuff off the table. And sometimes I'm working in a delicate environment where I don't want a whole bunch of air coming, and this is great. These two tools, well, okay, this one, you can get these, we'll include a link in the description, but like 15, 20 bucks, they're not expensive. They might even be cheaper than that. This is an example of a device made by a factory that makes it in many different form factors, but I'm sure they're all from the same place. And so I was going to say, this and this are luxury tools. Like, you don't necessarily need them. Like, these will supply most of what you need. But if you're heat gun curious like I am, and you want to find out more avenues to like threading that heat needle when you need it, I really appreciate the lack of power in the cordless and this tiny little tubular. It doesn't even have, like, one thing I want to do is actually give it a bigger cord that's longer, and I might want to hang it from the ceiling, you know, like a factory thing where you're like, boom, 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 and you got the heat gun. I'm toying around in my head with maybe doing that. We will include links to each of these in the description. And I'd love to hear your favorite heat gun stories. Yeah, even your favorite heat gun disaster stories. Go ahead and include those, because I just love reading those. Thank you guys for joining me. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you so much for watching that video. I've got a merch pitch for you. I'm going to keep it really quick. We have a brand new Demerit Patch 5-pack at tested-store.com. And these are the 5 you can get if you buy it right now. You've got the I hung it off level patch, the I built the chair upside down patch, the I stuck the duct tape to itself. Oh, my personal favorite. I hit my thumb with the hammer, and I stuck a stapler in my thumb. Get yours now, tested-store.com.